Um, when I was first like reading this chapter and taking in this information, it starts out with a lot of stuff about like religion or like ethical issues that I think we are more common, like we understand more commonly, issues of like race and sexual orientation and like whether it's permissible to like treat those people as less than, and the answer is ethically no. Like, and I kept racking my brain trying to figure out like how do I bring this concept into my artifact paper. They're already, well, my artifact's not written, but like each artifact is written, and like how have I already addressed ethics in them? And then there was a part about practices that are socially or culturally relative, and the book starts to kind of ask a series of questions, like some of the questions like were about marriage, like who gets married, who decides when they get married, what kind of people get married, what age, etc. And then there's like, when should children be accepted as adults? And when I got to that section, I started thinking about my paper in an ethical, my theme, my thesis, etc., as like an ethical standpoint, which is like each of these categories is dealing with like how women have been treated or how women should be viewed. And I think like the very easy and natural response is like, or like the baseline of what I'm writing is that ethically women should be treated as equal. But I think outside of that, it's like looking at, like I have my history of women, and the big question in there is like, we have treated women a specific way, and there are some advances, some, like they can have jobs they couldn't have before, or they can, there's a lot of things. I'm not blanking because there's just a lot of things that women can do that they couldn't do even in my grandma's time. But I think when you start to get down into more of like what they're talking about when it comes to like socially and culturally relative ethics, it's what stuff is still there, really. I mean, we talk about how we've moved on, and 13-year-old girls can't sell their body in New York, but 15-year-old girls can still be like pop star sex symbols. And so, I mean, to be dramatic, but also not that off, they're still selling themselves as a sexual object. And I think the question at that point is that okay ethically? Like, and talking about like still staying on the history thing, they said on the history subject is at some point in like the 1950s, they decided that like until a person was 18, they weren't considered an adult. And if you really think about it, that's such an arbitrary age. I mean, it is like the number itself is arbitrary, like, and in my life, I've heard men say things like, you just gotta wait till she's 18. And when you think about it as like an arbitrary number, the more we become adults, the more it's evident that like 18 is a baby. I mean, that's young. I have 22-year-old people I work with who work for me, work under me, whatever, that I'm constantly still amazed at how young they are. So like, what is the ethical answer to that? Like, and then, if I go into any of my other subjects, even talking about like technology, that's a whole new ballpark. Like, how do we instill or implement ethical laws or ethical decisions on the internet. I mean, you know, like on Instagram, if someone flags your picture because you have a nipple out, because you're breastfeeding as like a 30-year-old woman, they'll take down that post. But like if a 15-year-old girl has an Instagram and she's posting semi-nudes and it's a private account and no one's flagging it, how long will that stay on before it goes down? And is that okay if it's other 15-year-olds? I mean, I'm not saying I have the answer to that question, but I think now you're back into like, what is sexuality acceptable if it's between people of the same age, even if it's like out there like that? Like, does Instagram make it okay? Does social media make it okay? As long as nobody over the age of 18 is viewing it. Anyway, so I think the more I started thinking about it, the more I realized that like the question of social ethics is actually really pertinent in my subject. And I think I could, if I can like pinpoint, if I can get my brain to stay on one point, I think I could really like delve into that. But